Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. With me, Hayden Howerton. Of course, we've got a full breakdown of SMU's win at Clemson from over the weekend, and it starts on the Pony Express podcast presented by Northwest Insurance Agency right now.
Remember when your biggest worry was finding parking at Dallas Hall? Now it's protecting your home, your car, maybe even that first business. That's where Northwest Insurance Agency comes in. Exclusive coverage designed by Mustangs for Mustangs who've galloped into the real world. Protect what you've built and move forward with confidence, because once a Mustang, always moving forward.
Northwest Insurance.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let we go.
That's right, Hayden. Big win for the Mustangs over the weekend. 35-24 at Clemson. And, of course, the Mustangs get it done, avenging last year's loss in the ACC championship game. But, of course, we can't go any further without reminding you guys to reach out to our friend, Mark Villasana. You heard it at the top. Northwest Insurance Agency giving you guys the goods on how to protect yourself with insurance that keeps you covered at rates that you can be expected to think they're reasonable in the world of all the crazy insurance rates out there. Northwest Insurance Agency will keep you guys covered. So reach out to Mark, 214-352-5656. Hayden, what a trip this weekend to Clemson.
Man, this was one I had circled for a long time. Essentially, since you get in the ACC, it's like, oh yeah, we're going to this one. Kara and I flew into Atlanta while we waited around for my folks to fly in. We kind of poked our head around, got ready for a potential Georgia Tech trip here in a few years, but checked out the Georgia Aquarium. We saw the whales, which was something that Kara wanted to see, which was pretty awesome if you've never been. But the main event was tailgating at Clemson. I mean, what a beautiful campus. I even had to text Eric Macklin. I was like, I'm not going to lie, this place is pretty sweet. But what mattered was the on-the-field product, and SMU goes belt to ass a little bit. Sorry, Eric. But people on the board talked about how friendly Clemson people were. I think I had a little different experience. It was dead quiet as I'm walking back post-game. There was zero free beer handed out, which my mom takes great pride in, of getting free beer from opposing fans. She even got some at TCU. But as far as the game goes, the 35-24 win, just a historic program trajectory improving win as SMU takes down a blue blood of college football and proves yet again it belongs as you extend your 20-game conference win streak.
Yeah, the trajectory of SMU to get this win for this season, very, very important. And Rhett Lashley talked about it on Tuesday, just how important kind of that can be to kind of keep the momentum going. You know, you show those wins over Florida State, over TCU last year, over some of the programs that they've gotten wins over lately. And that is another one now in their notch on their belt, so to speak, that they can be proud of, no doubt, and use in recruiting and things like that. And look, the trajectory when you are flying through the skies with our friends at Status Jet, pretty high as well. So reach out to them, statusjet.com. Get a discount on your round trip flight when you reach out to David Henry and his team and book with them. There's no upfront membership fee or massive line of credit. It is a one-off trip if you want it to be, or you can be a frequent customer and they can just keep things rolling for you, creating trips of a lifetime. Use it to get to Wake Forest this weekend. Would highly encourage that. Start planning that trip for SMU basketball at Duke in January as well. And of course, leave it to our friends at Status Jet to plan it all for you and make it a high quality experience, just like it was for SMU fans in Memorial Stadium on Saturday.
Took the words out of my mouth. I mean, just such a fun day for SMU fans. And when we get to the keys to the game, I probably gave too many last week. I was kind of worried, like, oh, I'm probably going to go like 1 for 5 here. But SMU surprised me. They hit most of these goals when the first one was score first. You had to play from ahead in a game like this. And it took SMU's third offensive drive to get the scoring opened. But you start the scoring with a 70-yard Jordan Hudson touchdown where you turn around, you get a stop, you get 3 more, and then all of a sudden you're playing from 2 scores ahead. And SMU is just able to settle in at that point. The game got rolling. Clemson did fire back. They got a touchdown of their own. And SMU was always just able to answer and stay just out of reach for Clemson. Second key to the game that I had, you had to play a cleaner game than Clemson. I characterize that as win the turnover and penalty battle. While each team had one turnover apiece, I think Kevin's was more on Jordan Hudson, unfortunately, with the tip pass. But you each walk away with one turnover apiece. So you push that battle. The penalty battle, though, while SMU technically lost with 5 penalties, I want to say Clemson has only had 2 penalties called on them in the last 2 games against SMU. I know Dabo does things the right way and he runs a tight ship. There is no shot that they're averaging 5 yards of penalties a game against SMU. That's unheard of. So those 5 penalties for SMU, you lose that battle to Clemson. But for SMU standards, that is really good in what you needed to do on the road. I talked about the battle of this game going to be in the trenches, and I'm going to cover this in each section, but SMU dominated Clemson in the trenches. My last key, you hit the big plays. I thought we had to win the explosive plays battle. SMU walked away with 10 with 6 passes and 4 runs for explosives. Clemson only had 5. So you do all of that, you get a lucky turnover for SMU, and they were in great shape with my keys to the game this week.
Yeah, they were. I think for me, I mean, the turnover, look, Hayden, I respected a offensive lineman sticking up for a quarterback. That's what you guys do. Little bit behind Jordan Hudson on that one. We'll just call that a wash. That was not a bad turnover. That was not one that, it could have sunk SMU ship. It could have given Clemson the momentum to get going and all of that stuff, but it didn't. And Kevin Jennings got the ball back and led that offense with help from Jordan Hudson down to ice that game. And I thought that was the biggest thing for this game, to answer that interception. And, Kevin missed a throw. That was an open Jordan Hudson over the middle, and he's got to hit that. But nonetheless, maybe Jordan Hudson should have grabbed it. He made up for it later, though, catching that third down, no doubt about it. But I think for me, that's where penalties are so hard as well. You talked about that key to the game. It just kind of floors me. The way Clemson has certainly played against SMU so well enough to only be called for 2 penalties. Well, really called for 3. They declined 1 in the conference championship game. But it just is, I mean, it's kind of unbelievable. I don't know if you noticed this on the video board or if you were, maybe hitting the restroom one more time before the last push, but they started showing some Clemson highlights. I thought the transition from third to fourth quarter was really cool for the Clemson video board crew and just their whole atmosphere. But they were showing some highlights from the game. And on one of the hits on an SMU player, Clemson DB stands over him and kind of goes like this. And I was like, okay, well, where's that flag? I just, some of the ticky-tack stuff when you're playing a team like Clemson is just kind of like, all right, I get it. Jalen Moses said something to a guy. Like, it's different, but I don't know. The penalty thing, like, I'll tell you what, and I don't want to take too much away from anything else, and I don't know if you noticed this, but Savion Byrd after that last touchdown, I don't know if you saw it, but he had some words for some people on the sideline that were, clad in orange and purple and white and whatever else they were wearing, and Rhett noticed. And he let Savion Byrd have it. And then Guerin kind of came over and was like, don't do that again. You're good, though. Great game, whatever. But they're on these guys, and they're on these guys even when they don't necessarily get a penalty. So I thought that was a interesting story of the kind of game within the game of, how this team is at least managed from a penalty perspective. Like, people think it's unacceptable. When's the come to Jesus meeting or whatever? And yeah, some of the guys like Romello earlier this year, like, not great, but at the same time, there is coaching going on. There is all those things that they'll light into you even when something doesn't get called for a penalty. So I thought that was final moments of the game. Rhett rips into Savion for doing something that 99% of the time probably gets a, and so anyway, it's the penalty thing though against Clemson. You should almost not throw it out as a key to the game, but be like, all right, just know going in, we're going to be talking about this, that Clemson is not going to have penalties. So we really have to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, even Nick Saban was yelling at guys at the end of blowouts, stuff like that. It's just a reminder that, Lashley is all over this. He's not just letting things slide. Like you said, I mean, even Savion, and Savion's a very passionate player, as we've seen through
He
his
played a
time
great
here.
game too.
He balled out. I
Yeah.
mean, I'll talk about him in the film room a little
Yeah.
bit later because he had probably his best game as a Mustang so far. And I think that about a lot of the offensive line. But as far as driving this offense to victory, we also need to get you guys and potentially your new vehicle as you drive away from our friends
Oh,
with the Thomas Auto Group.
I love that. You picked right up on that on the play sheet there, Hayden. That was a great transition. We're gonna have to start letting you do that as well. Look, I can sit back in the service department of Thomas Auto Group and just let you do the work on that because that was stellar, just like the service you get at Thomas Auto Group. So make sure you head up 75 to McKinney or go online, thomasautogroup.com, and pick out your new vehicle or pre-owned, because either way, you're getting employee pricing when you mention on the Pony Express when you work with our friends at the Thomas Auto Group.
Here's what I'll say. So before I get to the grades, and this was the case when I was a player, you win the big game, you get graded easier because you think back, it seems like more fond of, okay, well that negative play didn't hurt us like it could have in another game. But when I watched this film back, I stand behind these grades. I think SMU just played as well as we thought they did on Saturday. It's never as good, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be, but ultimately I think it was pretty darn good. I'm going to give the offense an A here. Highest grade so far this year. 429 yards, 35 points. You run 75 plays. And I'm giving them an A partly because of the circumstances. Not that it was necessarily the most well-rounded game that we've played. I do think that was probably still Baylor. I know you had the turnover late that could have influenced that game a different way. But Kevin takes the sack on the first third down. He re-aggravates his ankle. I thought he was done. I was saying it on the board. There's no way he can step into the throws. And he somehow rallied for one of the best games of his career. I mean, he's tough as nails. He's poised. He was confident. And his decision-making was much improved. I mean, the ankle could have taken away from some of that. But he threw the ball away a lot more. He protected himself. He did throw that interception to Jordan Hudson, which, we're splitting hairs at that point. I think if the receiver puts hands on it, he should catch it. I never played receiver, so I'm sorry to all my guys out there who are going to argue me on that one. But Kevin didn't try to force anything. There wasn't much of a rushing threat from him, but that's fine. You get it done. You toss it out of bounds. You move on to the next play. I mean, there's one that I think about where I think it's a 2nd and 1. He's out in the open field. Looks like he could take off, probably pick up the first down. He chooses to throw it away. We still end up converting on the next one. So Clemson's front was very good, though, like we anticipated early on, especially at stopping the run. But this offensive line continued to lean on him. They continued to wear him down as the game went on. SMU only had 37 yards rushing in the first half, which when I look at the scoreboard at halftime, I was like, ooh, gosh, here we go again, not being able to run the ball so far this year. But you turn around and you have 102 in the second half. I said in the preseason we're going to need a running back by committee. And while TJ Harden had some really nice games against Baylor and TCU, Derek McFall and Chris Johnson Jr. have done enough the last 2 weeks to reopen the starting running back battle that continues to go on as we hit this point in the year. But the story of the game for me is the SMU offensive line. I think you dominated Clemson's very good defensive line in the past game. They only got home once for a sack, and that wasn't even from the defensive line. That was from the linebackers both splitting a half sack. Yeah. Peter Woods, a guy that I think's a potential top 5 draft pick, 2 tackles, no pressures. TJ Parker, 7 tackles, no pressures. Unreal from the SMU offensive line from a pass blocking perspective, especially Savion Byrd versus TJ Parker, as we'll see here in just a little while in the film room. But you also get the tight ends involved. They had a great day in the passing game. Maybe it doesn't show up on the stat sheet of just 1,000 yards, but they have multiple key conversions, even have the one-handed catch and run touchdown from Matthew Hipner. And it was nice to see RJ Maryland get involved for some key conversions as well. Was really pleased just overall top to bottom with the scheme, the execution. And I think this offense just really put it all together for the first time this season.
Yeah, there were lulls, and you could talk about like your quarterback playing on one leg. There's no doubt about it. And the biggest thing, not the biggest thing, but one of the key things for me was I said this offense at least needed to do a little something on the opening drive. And I really think in the grand scheme of things, that first down that TJ Harden powered through and got, it gave it a little bit of a tone set that, okay, we're going to be able to move the ball. We're going to be able to do some things. Jonathan McGill actually brought up a great point. And I think this is a good example of this game as a whole is a great example of this. But he said, Rhett Lashley really does take a minute sometimes. And obviously the last year they were excellent at starting and starting fast. But the way they adjust throughout the game is really top notch. And you think about all the things that they did, getting Derek McFall involved, getting Chris Johnson Jr. involved, going away from TJ Harden in a sense, and still getting TJ Harden involved. The little run that he had in the shuttle pass. That shuttle pass play was really underrated too. So they kind of attacked Clemson in different ways that, we haven't necessarily seen at times, but SMU hasn't played a front like Clemson all year. Like, there's no comparison for what SMU faced, even Stanford. They're just not with the talent that Clemson has in that group. And, SMU made them look silly at times. Some of the actions that they ran and freeze plays and things like that really got the edge, and they made big plays happen. So I think that this game was a example where you saw everything that SMU did and adjusted with offensively worked to a T, and overcoming Kevin's injury was a huge piece of that. But there's a lot more that went into it than just, okay, let's manage this quarterback who's hobbled. And he balled out and quite frankly didn't look, overly, like, once he settled into what he was able to do, he played lights out football.
I'm sure he had some adrenaline going through. I'm sure he was hurting on Sunday, but the guts that this guy has, Rhett said it after the game. We've got one of the best in the country.
He said the best.
The best. So
in the locker room.
I don't want to paraphrase when it's that.
Yeah,
he's a stud, and Rhett said that too. We are so fortunate to have a guy like Kevin. And I always see people trying to compare the SMU quarterbacks of the last 7 years. Kevin, and this is no disrespect to Shane, Tanner, Preston, the guys I've played with. I don't know if any of those guys would have been able to power through something like that in an environment like that one, against a front like that one. It's unreal. Kevin is moving into the number one spot for me as far as SMU quarterbacks that I've been around. Yeah. And it just kind of is another game that adds to his legacy as we get ready for the back half of ACC play.
No question about it. And look, speaking of adding to the legacy, the early legacy on Socorro Tequila is outstanding. An award-winning tequila that has been created to really just have this clean taste, this really, really just enjoyable experience when you sip it, whether it be in a margarita or whether it be on the rocks. I did try the Reposado for the first time, and I just really like that gentleness of it on the palate. I'm not a big let me sip tequila neat or with a rock or just whatever, but I'm trying to obviously come around to it and expand my horizons on it. And it was really, really enjoyable. So enjoyed that. Going to start maybe kind of keeping it clean a little bit more. I'm trying. I set a goal this year, Hayden, and I don't know if this is contradicting everything, but I'm trying to lose a little weight for the first time in football season. It's very hard for me with travel and all of these things. And look, the tequila, kind of playing it a little clean with our friends at Socorro Tequila, I feel like definitely helps at least on that front. So we'll see how that goes. I'll keep you guys updated, but keep us updated on Socorro Tequila. Share it with us on the message board at ontheponyexpress.com or tag me on Twitter. We had one of our friends comment on one of the first tweets of the game and said Socorro Tequila shot for every touchdown scored. And lo and behold, they had a few on their hands. So they had quite the little Saturday there with our friends at Socorro Tequila. So really excited. We're going to be out on the boulevard with them on homecoming. So make sure you find us. I'll release some information on that. But we're going to have a little tasting going on. So shout out to our friends at Socorro. Really excited about what we're doing with them. So that was a game that you gotta give a toast to the offense, no doubt,
Man,
as well as the defense.
we had a taste of what the defense can be for sure. I thought this was the best half of the year in the first half, and then they backed it up in the second half. This was the best overall game this defense has played all year round. I give them an A minus for a couple of the passing deep plays that you give up, but ultimately, I mean, you can't ask for much more. I don't care that they were without Cade Klubnik. I really don't think it would have made a difference if he was there or not. Chris Vizina, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 69% completion. Would Cade Klubnik have been a major difference off that stat line? I don't think so. I mean, there are a couple plays to where the receivers just straight up dropped the ball. I mean, Vizina could have had even more.
Yep.
But ultimately, we make Clemson one-dimensional. You stop the run. They only rush for 35 in the first half and none in the second half. 0.
Yeah, that's insane.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think 2024's defense did that.
No, I'd have to go back and look. Let me see if I can find that. Keep going.
But 4 sacks, 8 TFLs from our defensive front. I mean, you dominated the Clemson offensive line at the line of scrimmage. You have the strip sack early caused by Maizono's pressure on the second series. And that kind of just set the table for what the rest of the afternoon was going to happen. And I talked about the A minus and the couple of big plays that came through the air. And that's expected against Clemson's very talented wide receiver core. But Wesco Jr. was put in a seatbelt in this game. No receptions. He did leave the game in the third quarter for a neck injury. It looked like he was fine in the moment, but praying for him. Billy, do we have an update on him?
He is out for the year. So I don't know. I haven't seen the update other than that. I think, let me see if I can pull it up. It's a back injury as well. This, according to our friend Andrea Adelson over at ESPN. But yeah, that was such an awkward head neck kind of fall after the tackles. Clean low tackle. It was a great tackle. Yeah. I mean, clean. But he kind of bounced up and you thought, oh wow, okay, all right, like shout out being a freaky athlete landing on it. But it sounds like he's out for the rest of the season, but yeah.
Unfortunate for Clemson. I mean, he was on pace for 1,000.
Yeah,
he was on pace for 1,000 yards.
Yeah,
but ultimately, you hold him to 0 receptions. And we talked about our tackling. Open field tackling was elite on Saturday. Mm-hmm. 3 missed tackles on the day, and I think 2 of them were on potential sacks, not even in the open field. And to put that in perspective, we had 11 missed tackles versus TCU and 13 against Baylor. Yeah. Huge improvement. I don't know what they've been doing during practice. Maybe as soon as the media period is over, they just go full speed now. I doubt it. But however they've been working it, they have made it a point to improve the open field tackling, and it was awesome. Even my wife was like, wow, they're tackling really well in space. And this is like middle of the second quarter. I'm like, Kara, shut up. Don't ruin this for us. But out of all the ACC teams that have played in 3 conference games, our defense is number 1 in scoring defense. An insane stat of where we've come from. And somebody said, I don't care about yardage, I care about points allowed. And that's ultimately how you have to look at this defense. They bend, but they're not breaking right now. So best performance out of the year for the defense. I give them an A minus, just between the pressures, the tackling, and really a overall very, very strong performance against a talented Clemson team.
So I'm glad you brought up the number 1 scoring defense. One, you can't control who you play, guys. Like that's just not a thing. Either it'll, pop up a little bit if Miami wants to be Miami or Louisville wants to be Louisville, but Miller Moss hasn't looked that, he came alive last week. We know that, but it's since September, SMU's pass defense in particular has improved by, I believe, 125 yards a game. It was giving up 400-ish in non-conference play, which is just crazy. But to kind of put it in perspective, and somebody made this point on the board, and it's true. If SMU had a kind of middle-of-the-road defense in the non-conference, would be sitting here undefeated, which is a good point as well. Well, now, at least pass defense-wise, they are middle of the road. They also have not had Jalen Davis Robinson. And for as much as those people on the board want to, go after him, the staff is very bullish on him. And there are some things like the first touchdown of the game that Clemson had was Ahmad Moses kind of being caught looking in the backfield a little bit. So there are, things that can be cleaned up all the way around. So the pass defense is getting there. You got to remember too, when you're a corner, especially playing against a team like Clemson that has gazelles that they want to send down the field, your corners are running like sprints the entire game. And when you have Deuce Harmon, Speedy Nettles, Marcellus Barnes as your corners, it's really hard. I mean, like Kyron Chambers basically played the entire game at nickel. Deuce Harmon played outside corner without having a rep of it this week during practice. So, like, I don't know. I would always give up. Like, if you would tell me you give up 21 points, 3 touchdowns passing, and that's all you've really given up, great. Like, if SMU's defense can just keep teams under 30 points, usually the offense keeps its end of the bargain up. So it's a different way to think about the defense this year because of all the things that they've gone through. Lamadrick Spencer might be getting a little bit healthier. I don't think he's going to be back this week. Maybe he will, but they've not had their kind of projected secondary starting all year or healthy at all year. It's always been something. So I don't know.
And you see it in moments. I mean, you see some great plays. Deuce Harmon has had a couple plays this year where I'm like, wow, that's corner one type plays.
He was hitting. Yes, like he was hitting yesterday or Saturday.
Yeah. And then you have the plays like the 4th and 22 where it looks like a bunch of 7th graders out there in our defensive backfield. Yeah. Where it just I hate bringing this play up, but it looks like Clemson is just playing at the varsity level, and we're still JV in the defensive backfield.
And then Isaiah Wacobia covers one-on-one on a 3rd and whatever. Maybe it was 4th down breakup or whatever that Clemson had. I mean, just consistency. I don't know. It's crazy.
It's all over the place. But that's where the minus comes in. I mean, ultimately, Billy, like you said, you improve by over 100 yards in your average pass yardage allowing. You compare that to anybody else in the country, you're like, wow, this is a top defense. Look at all the strides we've made, so far this year. But people are very bearish still on this defense.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so. So we will see how it'll look. We're going to face very good offenses from here on out. I don't think there's one left on the schedule that you can just go ahead and write off that the defense will be able to just kind of coast through. They're going to have their best game every game from here on out in order for us to get where we want to be. But you also pair that with special teams, who was the most improved unit on the field on Saturday.
Hold on, because I did the research and I found an answer on the run defense piece. Well, kind of. I found a half answer. Last year, SMU's best day as far as stopping the run was against Stanford. Nothing to write home about. It's 33 yards rushing. But I do want to say Clemson only rushed for 64 in the conference championship game. So Clemson being one-dimensional is nothing new to this defense. Anyway.
But I got to talk about Sam Keltner. I mean, he's my special teams MVP. I will have an MVP of the game as well. But 3 for 3 on field goals, a 51 and 2 48-yard field goals. Insane. I mean, we knew we had it in him whenever we saw that kick that doinked off the upright against TCU that would have been good from 60. Kid's got a leg on him. Yeah. He's 2 for 3 on extra points, which is where the A- comes in. You can blame that on unsportsmanlike. I mean, I kind of chalk that one up to a little less margin for error on extra points. You're having to raise the ball up high so it doesn't get blocked.
He also cramped.
And he was cramping, which, Billy, don't get me started on special teams players cramping. Come on. Come on.
I know. If it was me, I mean, and I don't know, did you ever experience this? Just guys pregame just getting an IV, like no matter what, like the entire team just lining up for him? I don't know.
Yeah. KD Smith was like that.
Yeah.
Yep. Which,
why not?
Shout out KD. Love you, bro.
Yeah, he's killing it.
But we talk about the kicking game. In the return game, though, I think SMU was just taken out of it. We fair caught or let a touchback happen on 90% of the opportunities. Mm-hmm. I thought Ymir fielding the first punt was great. I know he fielded it on the 9, and it probably would have been worse otherwise. It looked like one of those that was going to check up if he lets it bounce. But our coverage teams did a nice job. You limited Clemson's returns. You only have 2 kickoff returns for Clemson. Keltner had 5 touchbacks, which maybe that contributes to the cramping. And then you have Wade McSparron. Again, averaged over 46 yards on his 5 punts. Really solid day top to bottom. The missed extra point is just the only thing that's bumping it down to an A-.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I thought the tackling was pretty solid on special teams too. There just wasn't a lot of opportunity for either one of these teams to kind of take advantage and make a game-changing special teams play. I mean at least Clemson got one good return, but that was about it. So
yeah,
good stuff
there. It was
there.
scary in the moment, but you make a nice open field tackle.
Yep, exactly. That was good stuff. Special teams is not talked about enough. I will say that they've outside of the kicking adventure it's been to get to this point. Special teams has been really good. I mean, they've pressed the right buttons, in my opinion, at least. So,
no doubt.
Well, speaking of pressing the right buttons, all it takes is a couple of buttons pressed with our friends at Game Time to take advantage of the great low prices they've got for you to get college football tickets. And if you're planning on being there like us on Saturday in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to see SMU take on the Demon Deacons, well, let me tell you, they tell me in the ad read that guess what? You can get tickets as low as $25. You can get a little bit lower, I bet, if you wait a little bit. If you're watching on YouTube here, there are some tickets hanging around out there, hovering around that $25 mark. Maybe they will drop a little bit more. I see one for 24. Can I have one for 24? Can I get one for 23? We'll see what happens as the week unfolds. But this SMU Wake Forest game is one that if you're in the driving distance, come see Hayden and I. We'll be out there hanging out. SMU taking on Wake Forest at noon over there in the Eastern time zone. And this is one of those games where obviously SMU is going to have it. We are going to preview the game later this week for you. But I can tell you what, we always trust our friends at Game Time to get us to these college football games. Fees are included when you check them out at Game Time. So you know your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. So take that guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code ON3 for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Hayden, I love using Game Time in real life for concerts, comedy shows. That's the other thing you could also do. So make sure you use that as well when you get the opportunity, buddy.
Hey, basketball season's around the corner. Hockey season's here. So use it to your advantage, guys. I've used it before. It's actually super easy. But another thing that looked easy on Saturday was some of these clips that I will show you guys here, as we do have the film room making another appearance. So we've got it every week on the recap pods. For you guys who aren't on the YouTube copy, go ahead and check us out. Add some film to the actual audio commentary for the film room. But another shout out to the SMU staff for allowing me to get this film, bring it to you guys, because I was highly impressed. You get to watch it from the side angle. You get a whole nother appreciation for this game when you watch it from behind, and just watch how SMU was essentially attacking Clemson physically in the trenches, out on the perimeter blocking. There's a lot of things that I think you guys are going to really enjoy on today's Game Time. Today's film room. Still thinking about Game Time. But without further ado, guys, please enjoy this week's edition of the film room. So I think SMU's offense did a really great job of scheming up Clemson's defense, and we threw them some wrinkles that they hadn't seen before this season, and this was one of them. So this is a one-way play that gets put in pretty early in the year. I personally helped Coach Justice coach this when I was there in the spring a couple years ago. I take zero credit for this play. I'm just saying this play has been in Coach Lashley's offense since they got here. So we used to call this play wham, and wham is really designed to go to a specific front based on the way that you coach it. So here, SMU is wanting to run this to an under front, which means the shade is to the strength of the offense. So Shade is over here on the right, aka the 2I. Is over here on the right. He's not really a shade. He's more on the guard. But either way, on the snap, both guards are going to clear. So they're going to run straight up field to the linebackers. And then the center and left tackle are going to give him a second to clear. They're going to kick. And then Matthew Hibner, the tight end, is really the one that makes the wham go. He's the one that ends up in the hole here. I think this play is run more efficiently to 2 high rather than single high, because when Hibner motions in, you do bring that additional safety. SMU ran this play again later in the game, and it ended up being an explosive run. And it was against 2 high because this safety wasn't here. But I wanted to show this clip in particular because of the finish that Matthew Hibner has. That's Peter Woods right there. That's a first-round defensive tackle, and Matthew Hibner is driving him and decleating him. It's freaking awesome for the tight end to set the tone like that. Guys respect people who are doing things outside their typical scope of work. It is not the tight end's job to block defensive tackles usually. But watch him right here. Gets a nice knockdown, and guys are excited for him. So I love Matthew Hibner. That's no secret, and he does a great job here on the wham. So this is right after Kevin's ankle injury on that early sack in the game. And when he came running back onto the field and he had a little bit of a gait to him, I wasn't sure how he was going to be able to keep playing, but he proved me wrong. He proved everybody else wrong, because this is a sprint out protection. Kevin is supposed to be on the run here. When he runs over to the right, he realizes, yeah, there's no way on that ankle. So puts his foot in the ground and just throws a dot here. I mean, this is all arm talent. He doesn't step into this throw. You know, he kind of steps around it. He's trying to take as much weight off that ankle as he can, and just throws an absolute dime over the top of the defense to Jordan Hudson. I mean, that ball probably traveled 45 yards in the air, and it looked effortless from Kevin. But ends up being a 70-yard touchdown, catch and run for SMU. Silenced the Clemson crowd and really put SMU in the driver's seat for this ball game. Through 7 games this season, this SMU offensive line is one of the best pass protecting units in the country. And here, Clemson's going to run a game interior-wise. I think the offensive line does a good enough job of getting back off the ball so they can pick it up. They keep everything in front of them. Nobody gets picked, which is what you're looking for. But I'm really highlighting the tackles here, especially Savion Byrd. Savion has had a season that pretty much reflects his 2024 ACC championship game. Struggled a little bit early in the season, but as we get into the meat of our schedule in the back half after that first quarter, Savion's turned it on, man. I mean, he's going against TJ Parker here, a guy that I had highlighted last week as one of their key players. He does a great job mixing his setup. So instead of getting into his traditional kick, punch, what he does here is he really does a delayed jump set. So he does one kick, and then he gets on him right now. So even with TJ Parker's extended arm length, and he's a prototypical defensive end, Savion is outreaching him with his arms on the outside of TJ Parker's frame. Savion is just a freak athlete. He does a nice job. He's really picked it up this time around for this season. You're getting into the meat of your schedule, and Savion's playing his best ball right now. Really happy for him. Thought he had his best game of the year. I texted him after the game. But he's hungry, man. He's hungry for more. I'm excited watching him going against this caliber of talent as he continues to prove that he's one of the better offensive linemen in this conference. I love the quarterback-designed run game that SMU incorporates. And while I want to take care of Kevin and ensure that he's healthy, it's awesome getting him involved in the run game as well. Because when you have quarterback runs, you essentially buy yourself an additional blocker. Because here we've got 2 tight ends, the 5-0 lineman and Kevin in the box. This is a pretty light box for Clemson. They're only showing 6 guys with the 7th at about 9 yards from the ball, 8 yards maybe. But ultimately here on this run, this is a quarterback counter. So we're going to run it to the right. Counter's a gap scheme play. So the front side essentially all has gaps. So PJ collects number 17 who's running through his gap. Addison Nichols washes Peter Woods essentially back to Georgia as he's taking him from middle right all the way over to the left hash. And Kevin just does the rest because Kevin gets downfield. He catches a nice block from Logan Parr, who goes and kicks out this jetting up the field D end. He follows Stone Eby, who kicks out this corner or the safety coming downhill. And it really takes the backside corner to track Kevin down after a 10, 11-yard gain. So an explosive run for us with the quarterback counter game. Thought that it was blocked up well. Thought Kevin got downhill quickly and got what he needed to pick up another first down. This was one of those plays where you realized not just how great of scheme SMU had on Saturday, but what great players SMU had. Sometimes it's about Johnnies and Joes, not just X's and O's, because this is going to be a speed option. And this is another thing that we haven't seen a whole lot of so far this year. So on the snap, right tackle PJ Williams, he's going to slip this D in, TJ Parker here, as TJ Parker becomes the read man for this speed option. PJ's going to go get the outside shoulder of this linebacker, buy Derek McFall enough time to get to the corner, and then he just does the rest. I mean, watch him turn this corner and turn the Jets on. He catches a great block from Jordan Hudson downfield, but he just outruns the Clemson defense. I mean, here, Clemson's got great angles to go make this tackle. Yeah, it's going to be a 10, 11-yard gain for SMU, but Derek McFall just turns it on and outruns everyone. So, huge touchdown at this point in the game. SMU proved that they have the athletes to run with anybody in the conference, because Clemson consistently gets the best players in America, and SMU was ready to go. They had the best athletes on the field on Saturday, but SMU had the best scheme, and they had freaking great players as well. So, really excited to see where this offense can continue to go when you continue to get talent like this. Just because SMU had great scheme doesn't mean that Clemson didn't. So here they're showing 7-man blitz. They do a nice job of buying the center here, so they rush forward as much as they can to keep Josh Bates involved, to keep him from getting out and bumping other guys off. So SMU went into this call with a 5-man call or a 5-0 or a popo or however else you've broken it down over my career. Essentially, it just means the 5 offensive linemen have the 5 defensive linemen. The running back and the quarterback will have the other 2. So on the snap, like I said, they buy the center a little bit. We're not able to get out to this number 25 blitzing off the edge. Savion does enough job to keep 13 away. He does lose late, but Kevin drifts, buys himself enough time, and then just drops another dart. I mean, right over the outstretched arm of the linebacker. He only missed this one by probably a fingertip. And then, not to be outdone, Matthew Hibner collects his own one-handed catch here for a catch and run. I mean, you see it at this point. They know this is a touchdown. This is at that point in the game where SMU started to pull away. Our offense was talented enough to go get this thing done. And they did a great job both schematically, physically, and they were just hungry, man. It was fun watching this offense on Saturday pull out some creativity, but also some guys that just wouldn't be denied. Really happy for this offense. That's why I gave them an A overall, and they just did a great job on Saturday. So on to the defense. I talked last week how a single big play from the defense can change the course of the ball game, and I think this was one that set the tone early. So we have a little game here between the D end and Brandon Maizona. This is Turbo going inside here as they're running a twist off of this, and it works perfectly because the running back steps up to block blitzing Maizona. They run a twist, and you don't work twists between offensive line and running back very often, so this ends up getting home, and Maizona does a great job attacking the upfield arm. He gets his head there is actually what forces this fumble, and it looked close in the actual stadium. I think the first time that they showed the replay, the Clemson fans were expecting this to be called an incompletion. But the more you watched it, the ball is out at this point. Before his arm can come forward, this is a forced fumble. But what I'm most proud of is SMU just doesn't stand around and assume it's an incomplete pass the way that Clemson's offensive line does. They get on top of this ball. Club takeaway comes up big in Clemson. They get themselves a takeaway early. You buy SMU's offense another possession, and you really just kick Clemson's offense down a peg. Great job to the defense coming up with the big play. It was the only turnover of the game for the defense, but it was at a critical moment of the game, so they did a great job bringing club takeaway all the way to South Carolina. It wasn't all perfect, and there's certainly things to clean up in the Weber end zone complex when SMU's defense goes into the film room, and this is one of the clips that they're going to coach on. So here, SMU's in a single high safety. This really looks a little bit more like cover 3 than anything, with the 2 deep corners in the middle of the field safety. But you got to know where your help's at. This is Speedy Nettles down here on the bottom of the numbers, and I think he's had a pretty good season. He's come a long way from that first couple games, but ultimately he's got to know where his help's at. He's got outside leverage, and I think he does a good job of keeping that, but this middle of the field safety needs to help him on this deep ball. Clemson is faking a screen here in order to buy themselves some time with this deep post. The safety bites. He's just a couple steps late as this ends up being a critical touchdown for Clemson. This is just one of those things that's going to take time. And this is Ahmad Moses in the middle of the field. He's a very experienced player for us. But ultimately, they're on scholarship too. They get paid too. And so this is one of those things that I think Speedy's in a good spot. I think he could play this a little tighter. He's got about 3 or 4 yards of separation, but the middle of the field safety needs to be there to help him out. So this will be something that they coach on, something that they try to prevent in the coming weeks, but just something I wanted to talk to you guys about. As well, it's probably easy to say, oh, Speedy Nettles should have made a play on this. He's got help in other places, and that help has to be there as well. This is when I knew SMU's run defense was for real. So Clemson has 9 offensive linemen in the game. So 94, the left tight end, he's got knee braces on. That's an offensive lineman. You've got the left tackle, who's really a 6th offensive lineman, coming in for Blake Miller, who's over there at the right tight end spot. The typical left guard, the typical center, the typical right guard, and the typical right tackle. So there's 7 offensive linemen up front, and you have another 2 who are in the backfield as fullbacks. This is one of those where you just have to lay it all out there as a defense. You have to tighten up, and SMU does a great job. Cam Robertson here on the right side, he ends up spilling both of these fullbacks here to the linebacker who's flowing over the top. That's Maya Zono here. And then the running back, this is Peter Woods. This is a 310-pound tailback who they're charging with, hey, go get 2 yards here. And SMU's defense comes up big. They stuff him on 4th down. Clemson fans started booing here as this on paper looks great, but ultimately SMU just would not be denied here on defense. Great job stepping up in a big way. This was another critical 4th down, and you get the ball back for the offense. Great job defense coming up in big moments on Saturday, and one's just like this. I wanted to highlight an individual effort as well by Turbo. Turbo every week seems to come up with a play like this, and this is Blake Miller that he's going against at Clemson's right tackle, really the defense's left. He just makes a great rush move. He knocks his arm down. You can see Miller's arm get collapsed there. He just completely wipes it off of him and then turns the corner for a big hit. I mean, Clemson is getting into some of their play action protection. You can see the offensive line is pretty stout on the line of scrimmage there. They're trying to sell it best they can. This is the most critical block, is the backside tackle on play action, and this is why. By the time he gets to the top of his drop, Turbo's already there, ends up being a big sack for the defense. And just talking about this defense on Saturday, I gave them an A- on the tape just for a couple of those defensive back plays, but this D-line came to play. They were playing like the D-line of last year. Maybe they're trying to live up to 2024's D-line, but if they keep playing like this defense can go anywhere they want to.
Great stuff. I tell you what, Hayden, that game, high-level athletes on both sides of the field. I think that's what stood out to me watching that game up close. I spent roughly 3/4 of the first quarter on the field, and then the last, probably 5 minutes of the game on the field. And that was what major college football was all about. That was very similar to the Florida State game last year from an athlete perspective. Obviously, the conference championship game. The Penn State game was quite the adventure to get there, so I really didn't get to see too much up close. But the Louisville game, very similar. These are 2 programs that I think are going to have some good battles over the years if Clemson and SMU can be at the top of the league and end up, playing each other for conference championships again, or, whatever the schedule gods dish out next. I'm not sure when Clemson comes to SMU 2 years from now, I think. It's 2027 when OU, or maybe it's even beyond that. I don't know. Anyway, I'll try to pull that up, but SMU's going to have some good battles with Clemson. You can tell the respect that Rhett Lashley has for them, and they really have, I think, built this initial kind of rivalry of sorts. It's not, there yet, and Clemson does come to SMU in 2027. So be on the lookout for that, of course. But they're programs now that, like, you can kind of see it emerging between them, where we're in for some good battles year in, year out whenever they get a chance to play.
And I think they're just on an intersection point right now where SMU is doing a little bit of this. Clemson, on the other hand, is doing a little bit of this, where you're catching them at the right time on Saturday. And Clemson goes 9-4 last year, which is a down year for them. It's looking like they're probably going to be fighting just to make a bowl game at this point this year. While Yes, Clemson is the gold standard, the blue blood, all of the things that they have been in the ACC recently. It's hard to watch them make the adjustment into the NIL era. You
Mhm.
saw the resentment that Dabo Sweeney had to start getting guys in the portal. And I was talking about this on Saturday. So Clemson has guys that leave the program, and what are they backfilling it with? High
Yeah.
schoolers, which they do a great job of getting recruits, but you're still waiting a couple of years for those guys to go through strength and conditioning and gain the experience needed to play at a high level, especially in this league. And so I just look at it where a change has to be made, whether that's with your coordinator. Your offensive coordinator was getting booed essentially out of the stadium,
Yeah.
which I played for Garrett Riley and heavily considered waiting for him after the game to heckle him a little bit. But ultimately, Dabo is going to have to make a serious culture change to stay relevant at Clemson. I think he will. I think he's one of the premier coaches in the league. That's not a hot take by any means when he's a top
Yeah.
5 highest paid coach. But most of the coaches around college football now, with Nick Saban retired, look to Dabo Sweeney. So
Yep.
I have no doubt he'll right the ship and do what he needs to do. He brought Clemson back from a serious valley that they
Yeah.
were in when he took over the program. I have no doubts he can do it again, but it's just an interesting time to get Clemson. I'm not downplaying this win by any means. It is hard to freaking win, especially against those guys. But I think now SMU is at a point where you can start looking them eye to eye instead of punching up. So we'll get to our MVP. I think it would be very easy to give it to Kevin, and I really, really want to. I gave it to him, I think, a couple weeks ago, so he's already got one on the year. It took guts, added to his legacy, like we've already talked about. I want to get it to the defensive line unit. This was another unit that people had written off of, it's over. We're never going to be like 2024 again. And the 0 rush yards in the second half and the 4 sacks. I mean,
Yep.
you never allowed Clemson to get comfortable. And you have to give a lot of credit to Coach Tibbs. I mean, the job that he has done with taking a team that at the beginning of the year did not look like it was going to look anything remotely like 2024's defensive line. And he's developed them to the point where, Billy, now we're sitting here talking about it like, okay, now we're seeing some flashes of what we saw this time last year. I have no doubt they're going to continue to develop as you get into the meat of this ACC schedule, but I do want to give it congratulations and just give it to the defensive line room.
Yeah, I can't even recall who I said my MVP was on the After Stank show. I'll be honest with you, but I think looking back on it now, I think this team really got a huge boost. And I might have said Chris Johnson Jr. on the show, but Chris Johnson Jr. and Jordan Hudson are kind of my 2 MVPs. Jordan Hudson, getting open, making that play. I still think it's pretty wild just what he's played through, because I would imagine he's got to have something cleaned up on that elbow. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but just the way that they have it with the brace and everything, I again, could be wrong, but he's gutting it out. I saw in the, in the locker room, I think he might've had his kid with him, which was pretty cool, in the locker room. So that was awesome. If that was his kid, it seemed like it, when he handed him off to Zay to break the rock. So I'm going to rock with Chris Johnson Jr. and Jordan Hudson. They were 2 of the most explosive guys on the field. They really couldn't be stopped, and kudos to him for stepping up in such a huge moment. Of course, Kevin's the easy one. We know that.
Man, I'm just proud of this team. Before we get to coast, I talked last week that I didn't think this would be the biggest road win SMU's ever had. I still think the Louisville win from last year is probably number 1, just because of how unexpected it was.
Yep.
You go on the road the first time as an ACC team, you beat a top 25 opponent, but this one's up there, guys. For the job that Rhett Lashley has done, taking this program from a dark day, essentially when he was taken over in December of 21, where he's inviting guys like me into his office to talk about what's next, what's going to be coming. And hey, and he told me this, and I remember this. He says, Hayden, we're going to win a conference championship, and it will be because of the foundation that you said. And I appreciate that, Coach. But the job that he has done of taking this program to the next level is insane. I mean, you can't understate how good of a job Rhett Lashley has done. And he's too humble of a guy. He'll give credit to all the people that have come before him.
Yeah.
But we are very fortunate to be in the position we are and to go get a huge win at Clemson. So I'm super proud of it. This is going to be one of those wins that you sit around for the next year, 2 years and go, hey, remember that time? Because it really is that special.
Yeah, it was, no doubt. And I think that's what I kind of take away from it, watching just some of the videos and the mini movie that the video team released. I mean, the amount of work it takes to turn the wheels of a culture. Yes, you can look at an Indiana and be like, oh my gosh, look at what they've done. And Kurt Signetti, and it took 1 year. Man, I think when you have a program that had reached some success with Sonny, I mean, they did. And like he had done it a certain way. It's almost harder to maybe do things a different way, even with the way Sonny went out. Like, as much as people are like, oh, forget that guy, fuck that, whatever. Like, you still have to understand how success is trying to be built with this new staff. And it took a minute. And then, they broke out in 2023, and then 2024, we know that historic season. But it still is a program that has jumped up a level in competition. And, that is really hard to kind of quantify maybe how difficult that is at certain spots. Like, I think, you look at the depth that SMU's had to be able to even be in this spot this year is really impressive. And it's been more than tested at various times. And so you've got to give them kudos on how they built the roster. But you could tell in the mini movie, I really encourage people to watch the mini movie because it gives you that glimpse of how they build certain things in the off season, where then they'll circle back to it when it's time for that game. And it just gives you kind of this whole complete circle of why they do things the way they do, and why they, we've talked a lot about culture earlier this year when things weren't going well, but it's a foundation that they try to build. And for last year we knew why, things didn't maybe go well early. They made a change. It was tough. It was the right move. And they, quickly, took off after that. But this year it was, okay, we kind of need to figure ourselves out. And it's taking a little bit longer than everyone would have liked to in conference play. And now you see the payoff because they're able to tie things back to what they did in the summer, to what they did to start the week. And then Rhett closes it out on that Thursday. And it's just really kind of special to see that kind of peek behind the curtain. Obviously, when it works out, it's easier, but I just thought it was a really special week kind of looking back on it.
Yeah. And to watch his development, because you talked about how it would have been easy to kind of follow the path that Sonny left, because Rhett was an offensive coordinator under that same system. I mean, how easy would it have been to be like, hey, we'll pay you to stay. I don't want you to leave. I mean, some of these coaches that didn't get taken to TCU were still on the staff with Rhett. And you keep the ones that you needed. You keep Scott Natty, who is a very underrated asset to the program. And I almost feel bad giving him a shout out because I'm like, please don't let anyone take him from us.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have to give him his flowers, and you bring in Grizz, and you kind of change the strength and conditioning trajectory a little bit. And it's built you to be able to play big time football with the big boys. I mean, love my career, who I got to play against, things like that. The guys that they have now are more ready to take on opponents like this.
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking of taking things on, shouldn't you take on franchise ownership if you're tired of the corporate rat race and you want to live that American dream? If you can do it, our guy Andy Ludicky is the one to talk to. He can get you straight on all the different franchise ownership models that you should look at, whether it be an owned and operated franchise, a semi-absentee franchise, a master franchisee, or an area or regional developer. He can explain what all that means, or you can go to his website, myperfectfranchise.net. He'll get you hooked up with all the things you need to know, and you can easily schedule a call or email him from the website, and you can give him a call at 404-973-9901 or email him Andy, A-N-D-Y, at myperfectfranchise.net. Appreciate his support of us at On the Pony Express. And of course, the entire On3 network, big supporter of what we do from a entire business perspective. So, Hayden, coast to coast, but let's start out right here in Dallas.
You got to talk about the volleyball team. I want
Yeah.
to give a quick shout out to all them. They do go on the road. They beat number 4 Louisville in Kentucky on Friday night. They snapped a 40-match home win streak for the Cardinals. Pretty special for now the number 7 team in the nation, the SMU Mustangs volleyball. Sam Erger is a superstar now in this volleyball coaching world. It's been really cool to watch them dominate over the last year plus, especially first year and a half in the ACC. But really happy for her. Really happy for the SMU women's volleyball team. But onto the gridiron, we did have 3 rematches of conference championships from 2024 this past weekend. You have SMU Clemson, you have Army Tulane, and you have Boise State UNLV. Boise State and Army both won for the second straight time. SMU was the only one that ended up flipping. But on Friday night, I think a game that all of us were watching while we were waiting around for this Clemson game is number 2 Miami hosting Louisville. And Carson Beck, he throws 4 picks, including a game-ending pick when Miami is in tying field goal range, under a minute left, and Louisville just steals a road win at Hard Rock. I'm looking at Miami now, and you think about how their year started, but you think about what Miami did last year after a very solid start. I'm not saying it's the exact same Miami team, but a tiger ultimately doesn't change its stripes. But you have to give credit to Jeff Brom. I mean, he defeats his 4th top 3 opponent in the last 7 years between Louisville and Purdue. ACC is wide open. You have 7 teams with 1 loss or less through week 8. And Billy, it's going to be a wild finish in this league.
Could you imagine the like fanfare if Miami hadn't have blown this around SMU's game? It drives me nuts that they do this because, I am of the, hey, let's wait and see with Miami. Like it's the same with Texas A&M. They are just going to have to show me. And it's like I said last year about SMU going into the TCU game. I picked against SMU just solely from the standpoint of, I think they're talented enough. I think they're good enough. I think they've got the guy in Kevin Jennings. Like, I fully believed in Kevin Jennings and what he'd be able to do, but they hadn't done it. And I mean, look, Rhett talks about this a lot. He points to it, going up to Penn State. We'd never done that before. When you go to Clemson, 80,000, it was a little, probably 75, whatever it was, because the corners weren't
78 was the official.
Okay, yeah, 78. Like, it was loud. It was a great environment, but it shouldn't have fazed anybody. Miami has not gotten through all of the different hurdles of being mature enough, especially a veteran like Carson Beck, to go out there and not throw 4 interceptions at home. At home. And Jeff Brom is an awesome coach. I'm not that high on Miller Moss. Kudos to him for, playing the way he did. And that's what happens when you play efficient. It also helps Isaac Brown was healthy. But it's the same song, different year for Miami. They, can tout the NIL and all those things, and maybe they have this loss, and it's different than last year where they had a loss, but they didn't figure it out. Maybe this year they figure it out. But their schedule is very doable outside of really SMU on it. You can argue that Pitt game is kind of looming late in the year where they're playing well, so kind of keep an eye on that. But I don't know. I mean, like, Louisville should be undefeated. They let one slip away, at against UVA. But I don't know. I mean, Miami, it just doesn't surprise me that they lost. They've not been able to stay focused enough to play winning football, which means not, shooting yourself in the foot. SMU in conference play has been able to figure that out the last few years. So we'll see what happens in a couple weeks. But SMU, of course, has to get through Wake.
And to stay in the ACC, I mean, we got to kind of go from 2 different spectrums here. Talk about one of the teams that was expected to be one of the best. We had no idea what to expect from the UNC Tar Heels, but it wasn't this. They travel to Berkeley. You take on the Cal Golden Bears, and we still have to play Cal at the end of the year. I think Cal is a solid team. They're no Stanford. They're no Boston College as the way they're playing right now. But it was the tale of 2 fumbles. North Carolina fumbles on the very first play, turns the ball over to Cal. And then in the fourth quarter, you fight all the way back. You're down 3. You throw a quick slant over the middle. North Carolina looks like they're going to score a touchdown, and you fumble the would-be touchdown, and Cal falls on it. Football's a game of inches. UNC is 0-4 against power conference opponents so far this year. The Belichick era is so underwhelming. I mean, it's not even funny because he's a top 10 highest paid coach in America. The first $30 million are all fully guaranteed. I mean, it's going to be really hard to fire him, where you might have to get into one of these Patriot, mutual decisions where you just both expect to leave, because it's hard to watch right now.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. They completely blew that game. They're not good fundamentally. I thought, when he's going into score, you're kind of like, oh, this is it. And then just fundamentals go out the window. They're such a non-story now nationally outside of what are they going to do with him that it's crazy.
They'll always have the first drive against TCU, but
there's so much hope for SMU fans on that one too.
Yeah. But to talk about another kind of underwhelming season, you got Florida State. They go to Palo Alto. They take on Stanford, and you walk away empty-handed. It was a thrilling finish. It brought back some Pac-12 after dark energy as Florida State runs an untimed play from the 2-yard line after a defensive pass interference, gives the Seminoles a chance to win the game against Stanford with a touchdown. And you get stuffed. The replay upheld the ruling on the field. Stanford knocks off Florida State, first time ever meeting. I mean, Florida State on paper has never beaten Stanford, which is insane to think about. But all 3 teams who voted to keep SMU, Stanford, and Cal out of the ACC all lost to those respective teams. You have Clemson losing to us, obviously, Florida State losing to Stanford, and North Carolina losing to Cal. It's a lot of poetic justice, if you ask me.
It is indeed. I will say that Cal game, or that Florida State game at Stanford is just like, Hayden, it is shocking to me that Florida State is that in the tank. And I know it's a long, long road trip out there, but man, we saw that Stanford team. I mean, I don't know. Is that that's the best performance that Florida State could put out there?
Well, what's frustrating is you see Stanford's physical talent and you see Florida State's physical talent. I mean, and I know that's why they play the game, because it's not played on paper. But ultimately, you look at Mike Norvell, and Florida State came out and said they are dedicated to him finishing this season.
I think that's the right move, but it's still wild.
I would agree. But it's also like, okay, so he's gone as soon as the last regular season game is over. Yeah. But number 9, Georgia goes and ends number 5, Ole Miss's undefeated season. This was another really great game. They take the lead into halftime, 21-20. Georgia has trailed in 4 out of the 5 SEC games. Ole Miss scores a touchdown on its first 5 possessions, including after halftime. And then Georgia doesn't allow another first down the rest of the game. The whole fourth quarter, no first downs for Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin's denied his first top 10 road win as Georgia hangs on. They win 43-35.
Yeah, this one didn't get to watch too much of it, but had it on kind of in the corner. I was keeping a close eye on this one, and man, I thought it was curtains for Georgia there. I thought that was it, but look, Georgia, I believe, has not lost in 4 years at home. And I mean, maybe it's a little shorter than that, but I don't know. Once I kind of all right, clicked it off and kind of started, not watching it anymore. That was when Georgia stormed back. I was literally in shock. Somebody said it to me after in the post game, and I was like, "Wait, what? Ole Miss lost?" I was surprised. Especially, I was more surprised at how many points Ole Miss put up. They scored on their first 5 possessions, I think.
Touchdowns on the first 5.
Yeah, and they lost still. Good on Gunnar Stockton. I mean, I don't know. Mike Bobo silencing some doubters.
Yeah, the hedges are a tough place to play, man. They've been proven it the last couple of years. The hedges are beautiful, though. They're one of the things that I frankly love. I would love to get my yard looking that way, but an easy way for you guys to get your yard looking that way is our friends at AKM Turf and Greens.
That is right, Hayden. I'm so glad you brought that up. AKM Turf and Greens, you can get $500 off your project today when you reach out to AKM Turf and Greens and let them handle your backyard and make it the backyard of your dreams. Look at this, the putting green and chipping area by the pool. They need to throw some hedges around there. I'm sure they will. You don't do something like that without throwing some hedges around there. You know, it can serve as a little backstop there for your golf balls that errantly skip through the green area. But follow them on Twitter, or follow them on Instagram, AKM Turf and Greens, or go to akmturfandgreens.com and tell them On the Pony Express sent you and get $500 off your project today. So appreciate them, and perfect time to get the backyard done and handled really quickly. We've had some great experiences with our subscribers reaching out to them. So good on them. Speaking of a great experience, talk about Billy Napier walking off the field. He's getting booed and also fired this week as well.
And they won.
Getting booed after a win and then fired.
And they won. I mean, Florida gets a tight 23-21 win over Mississippi State, who's now 4-3.
It's a good state team. Better than they were expected to be.
No doubt. You know, I think that upset versus Arizona State kind of catapulted their season. They're better than we all thought, but I was surprised at the timing. I think it was the writing was on the wall for Billy Napier. You know,
Right.
I'm not upset with the change after he goes 22-23 at the helm. I'm just really confused on why, after that game in particular, you're going to fire him immediately after. But
so dumb.
It was probably decided before the actual game. If I had to guess, I mean, Napier's buyout, it's $19.38 million. I mean, seems pretty great to me, especially when he's owed 50% of it over the next 30 days. I mean, Billy, it'd be pretty great to be a fired SEC college football coach. But
it's just, you know, I like Billy, not because he has a great name, but he's been good to me. He's like, I don't think people understand, like, Louisiana, when he took over that job, dude, I don't know. Did you ever take a visit over there?
I didn't. My dad got his worst concussion of his career at ULL.
Oh shit. Before he got there, and they're just doing their stadium now. It's kind of, you might as well call it the house that Billy built. They did not have really good facilities. They were not invested. I went over there in year probably 2 or 3 when he was at UL, and they had just built this brand new facility. They had expanded a recruiting staff. They're kind of spending, they're investing. Stadium was super sad. Now it's going to be nice. But, you know, he took that and kind of built it up, and then obviously got the Florida job. And I don't know what's going on at Florida, but I was actually asked about this today by some folks that I know. And they asked me, do I think the Ole Miss job is better than Florida? And I think it is right now. And there's a number of reasons for that. One, the alignment at Ole Miss is very, very good. Their athletic director, former basketball player, you know, just all in on it. They've figured out NIL, and they have a president that's fully behind them as well. And it's not just like, if Lane Kiffin left for anywhere, they would have a blueprint on how to do it and continue to probably be fairly competitive as long as they got a guy who could really call the offense well there to kind of keep it going. But Florida, on the other hand, no school president. Scott Strickland is going to make this hire, allegedly, and he is got to be on thin ice. Like, a new president comes in, I can't imagine Scott Strickland's going to be there. I think he was trying to get out, truthfully, over the last year or so, but it just hasn't happened. He has also got a cushy job, so why would you leave? But you've built facilities, you've checked that box, you've got the swamp, it's awesome. But now you're recruiting a state that is Florida State, Miami, USF, and UCF in this NIL era can kind of like maybe steal a guy that would be a really good depth or, you know, diamond in the rough type of piece for you. It's a pain. And then the expectations are off the charts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. That Florida job, if they don't get Lane Kiffin or Eli Drinkwitz, I mean, I saw Jeff Brom's name floated, but I don't know. I think there's a lot more to just Billy Napier is a bad coach, although he should not be calling plays on offense. That was his mistake.
Yeah, it was tough sledding for him. You know, wide receiver coach Billy Gonzalez is now going to be the interim. I mean, It's so
They're
hard
going
to
to
win
hire
in
me
that
as their
league.
next head coach the way they're picking Billies around there.
Yeah, maybe so. But I want to give you guys our quick hitters, and I'm going to talk about Sam Houston State, not because I'm a sicko. My dad played there. They host UTEP on Wednesday night in Houston. Attendance was maybe 500 people. 671 is what I'm seeing as official. I don't know how true that is with season ticket holders, but they lose to the Miners 35-17. They're 0-7, and I'm talking about that because all of my dad's friends are in my ear about it. But first-year head coach Phil Longo, I think he's doomed the Bearcats. I mean, I'm just going to put that out there. You lose the locker room early on. There were reports of that early this season. 90% of their roster essentially transferred last year, and you're probably going to have about the same turnover this year. And they won 10 games last year. I mean, imagine what's going to happen if they go over. They're building a new stadium. They've got all kinds of things going on to try to make them a more relevant college football program in this wacky era where it seems like if you're a relevant FCS school, you're going to D1. It's just a matter of time, unless you're North Dakota State.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of just a weird deal in Huntsville right now. But get to
not to make it not a quick hitter. Phil Longo is the quintessential like I once called plays for a cup of coffee that were really good, and then I have a job for the rest of my life guy. Yeah. I've never met him. I literally just look back through a bunch of text messages, and every year it's I can't believe the team's doing this again. I just can't believe it. Wisconsin, that hire an up and comer, hire somebody with energy. I mean, I don't understand why, or just energy in general. Colby Carthel over at SFA, like dude is just wired all the time. Or I hire Neuheisel's son. I mean, I don't know how well he'd fit in Huntsville, Texas, but at least he'd be like, hey, let's have a ton of fun and let's see where this goes and whatever. But
yeah, Longo recruited me. I was very underwhelmed. I
don't understand it. I don't know why programs do this. I don't. It's hard to hire coaches, but it's really not that hard.
Well, another team who we talked pre-show, I think is going to be looking for a new head coach, Wisconsin Badgers. Number 1, Ohio State. And I get it. It's number 1. They throttled Wisconsin. 34-0. Badgers are shut out second straight week, but Julian's saying he might be a Heisman candidate in New York later this year. His receivers are claiming it. I'm starting to see it from what he's done. I mean, he's been on a tear as of late. Oklahoma bounced back after Red River. They get a win at South Carolina 26-7. You had ranked Holy War on Saturday, which is awesome. Only 4th time in history. BYU wins that one 24-21 in Provo. University of Texas survives the overtime scare against Kentucky. And look, Kentucky went first in overtime. You get stuffed 4 times inside the 2-yard line, which is unacceptable no matter which way you look at it. Texas kicks a field goal to win, but Texas flew all the way to Kentucky to put up 179 yards on offense, have 8 first downs, and have the ball for 20 minutes in this game. So I had some people who skipped my reunion to go to the Texas OU game, and I'm like, wow, you really went to that to go watch University of Texas's offense right now? Because it's brutal in Austin trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
And then finally,
I watched the end of that. I don't understand. I mean, I'm all good with Mark Stoops going for it. Like, what do you have to lose? But come up with something, dude.
Do better than four runs up the gut. I mean, is it that? Are you that uncreative?
Yeah.
I know you're not.
The last 2 were definitely, it's just the guy was just trying to jump over the top, and Texas has like 340 pounders just waiting.
It's stuffing everybody.
Yeah. Stuffing.
Revivalry, Bluebonnet Bowl, teams that beat SMU Bowl, unfortunately. Baylor and TCU clashed in Fort Worth. I mean, this was almost a 6-hour game. They kicked off at 11. I think they ended like 5 minutes before the Clemson game was over. You had multiple weather delays, but it was costly mistakes by Baylor. They commit 4 turnovers. Sawyer Robertson has 3 picks. And then TCU just held a late surge by Baylor. And Sonny was all fired up after the game. He was pissed at how people are discrediting them and things like that. I don't think TCU is any kind of Big 12 runner this year. With how they played against Kansas State a few weeks ago, I think they're going to run into somebody that's going to just knock the lights out of them.
Yeah, I mean, don't puff your chest out too much when you're 2-2. You're not out of it, but you're out of it. I mean, I don't know. I don't see that one turning around. Also, my Big 12 champion pick, Baylor, also sitting at 2-2 now with the tiebreaker, against them. So, oh well.
Yeah, I mean, how about Tech though? I actually didn't have any notes about them, but they go down too this past week. Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham keeps it rolling.
I mean, 5-2 on the year, 3-1 in league play. I mean, I don't know. It's really hard to win in college football, guys. You could just spend a ton of money and you can feel good about it going into the year, but it's really hard to win week in, week out, as SMU showed earlier this year, and how Texas Tech is showing in conference play when it matters. So, I mean, they could go on to win the rest of their games and be fine and maybe, make it in, but to, college football playoff or the Big 12 championship. But if you ask me if I have to give up Baylor and TCU to be in Charlotte December 6th and at Clutch at, 2:00 in the afternoon again, I'm giving it up. I'm good. Like,
Probably same.
If you're playing on a championship Saturday, I'm good. Doesn't matter. So I don't know.
Probably same. I mean, ultimately, if it doesn't matter if TCU goes 4-0 in non-conf and they go, let's call it 4 or 3-0. Let's call it 5-4 in league play. That's a terrible year for them.
Yeah.
But for us, you go 2-2. If the rest of the season goes the way we want,
you win
hopefully
10 games.
Charlotte again.
Crazy.
It'd be awesome. So
yeah.
We'll see. Another crazy week of college football. Love bringing this to you guys. Sorry for the hour and 20 minutes that you guys are probably at by now after the film room, but I appreciate all you guys listening to us.
Yeah, thanks guys for listening, and we'll let you get out of here without any more from us. Check in for our preview episode on Thursday morning, and we appreciate you guys for listening. We'll catch you next time on the Pony Express podcast. For Hayden Howerton, I'm Billy Embody. Catch you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU3 and on Instagram at On3SMU. And keep it locked to OnThePonyExpress.com for more coverage.